Hey, I just want to compare what is given up when your mind identified versus what's given up in the course of liberation. Because people, like to ask, is it worth it? And yeah, here's some thoughts on that. So I wrote a poem a while back it's about writing. It's about the fact that writing something down is always unsatisfactory because it's never going to be equivalent to what it's trying to describe. And it's the same way with thought. Thought is only a reflection, it's only after the fact. So it works for this too. It's called the poet's price. There's a price to pay for poetry and prose. Anytime you try to capture the irreducible reality of even a single moment of the four-dimensional splendor of this boundless universe in two-dimensional squiggles of black and white, it is a foregone and bitter failure. When you cut flowers, they begin to wilt. When you write a moment, its living quality can only be hinted at, and nearly everything is lost. I wrote that in Palestine when I was 29. Um, yeah, nearly everything is lost when when you're stuck in thoughts, like rigid, usually kind of rigid patterns of thoughts that you try to bend this universe to your conceptions, to your thoughts, to your stories, and you're constantly suffering because the universe does not bend to your will, to your thoughts, to your stories, not consistently. And when you try to squeeze it into that, you're squeezing so much life out of yourself and you don't even know it. So much potential, so many possibilities are never accessed because you keep trying to squeeze the universe into your little head. It doesn't work. Ultimately, there's a craving for stability, predictability, knowability, and it's never quite satisfied. You can kind of, stake your little claim, plant your little flag, and say, okay, this is what I believe no matter what. Um, and yeah, see how that works out. Sometimes it might work out okay for a good part of a lifetime. Um, some people choose relatively beneficial or rational humanistic beliefs, and I would consider that, you know, a life better lived than somebody who, yeah, decides that it's an animalistic world, it's dog eat dog, it's all bad, and so I might as well get mine or whatever. So that's the cost of living thought identified. What's the cost of liberation, of awakening, of getting away from that thought identified state? The cost is that story, those beliefs, that little place to plant your flag. It feels pseudo stable. It feels pseudo stable because, I mean, I say pseudo stable because there can be apparent continuity for an apparent stretch of time, but you constantly feel threatened because it's like, what if immigrants come and take my job? That's a fear that people are brainwashed to have in this country. A lot of people are brainwashed to have. What if the trans activists take my kid? That's another thing people are brainwashed to be afraid of. Um, or what if global warming um, makes the country uninhabitable? Um, this, I think, is a more rational fear based on the facts at hand. Um, but I mean, the fact remains, if you have this pseudo stability of like, well, but humans can figure it out and scale back the fossil fuels and have a reasonable discussion and have global treaties and fix the problem. If that is your stability and the world's not doing that, then you feel constantly embattled because reality is not conforming to what you want it to do, what you expect it to do, what you think is the right thing to do. Um, and, I mean, anybody's health could go down the tubes at any moment, car accidents, whatever. So it's like, as long as you believe things are going to keep going a certain way, there's a chance they won't, and that can feel very dysphoric because it's like a constant fear, a constant anxiety that this stable, pseudo stable existence that I'm counting on could could be gone if X, Y, or Z happens. Um, so with liberation, you lose any pretense of stability. You have nowhere to plant your flag. You have nowhere to call home in a sense because there's no there's no belief you can cling to. There's no stability you can count on. Um, contractions. I was talking to somebody about how like joy feels so floaty. It feels like the minute you try to grasp it whatsoever, it's gone. Like it's not something you can grasp. It's very ungraspable. Whereas like fear, depression, anger, that feels solid. That feels like something you can kind of hang on to, or that it can hang on to you, that you can kind of make an identity out of. Joy, not so much. I mean, it's like there's nothing to talk about in a way. There's nothing to, it's just like, you're just like a child. Oh, pretty. Oh, neat. It's like nobody wants to talk about that. It's like you're kind of on your own with that in a way. Like misery loves company. Joy often just pisses people off, like, and seems weird. But I think more importantly, joy it feels floaty. It feels unmoored. It feels untethered. It feels there's no pretense that you know what's going to happen next. And that's exciting too, to some extent, unless, I mean, it gets tougher when you have kids. It was much easier in my 20s. Now that I have kids and a mortgage and all the rest, it's a little bit, there's more reason to feel like things need to be stable. If it was just me, I probably wouldn't care very much at all. But yeah, the cost of liberation is basically the loss of things that were never there. If you really want to keep believing in stories in your head, you can. You can do it for the rest of your life. And some people do, and apparently that's fine because that's how it goes. But if you're somebody who just it doesn't work for you, you're just like, I know it's bullshit. Um, I mean, like, yeah, I feel like for me there was no choice. The path was, it was too excruciating living with any bullshit anymore. And if the cost is like, I mean, I've always been socially awkward anyway, so like, and now at least I don't care. Like, I genuinely don't care. If somebody like doesn't want to talk to me, like, that's fine. I have so many other things I can do. Um, and I have no fear of solitude whatsoever. Um, and yeah, so what you've lost is basically stuff that was never there, stuff that was always some kind of limiting belief. And it is, yeah, buddy. I don't know. I feel like I've never exactly quite believed it, so it was maybe not as painful for me as it might be for some people. Um, and meanwhile, life absolutely goes on. You know, it's like all the things that were there before are still here. I didn't lose anything, just except for heaviness, contraction, illusions. I can still play a human very convincingly. Most people cannot even tell the difference. I can still enjoy everything I enjoyed before, but even more because there's not this heaviness, there's not this fear, this constant sense of embattlement. Now, what is still a little bit, and it's the 10th fetter, what is still sometimes a bit distressing to some extent is the ignorance, the fact that I'm kind of like, imagine there's like a mosaic the size of the planet and you're an ant on one little part of it. You know, that's what I feel like. I'm not going to know what the big picture is in this form, if there is a big picture. um, but I can be here, this, with as much fidelity and attention and appreciation and joy as, I mean, certainly much more than before. And with so much less of this pressure to sort of get it right or fix something or, yeah. So no idea what it will look like in a week or a year or 10 years. No idea at all. Just gotta roll with it. And take sensible precautions to what extent you can. But that's a relatively small percentage of life. You work those things out, you do them, or if you need to move, you move. A lot of people are moving out of red states for obvious reasons. We're okay here so far. So far, so good. that could change. And if it does, you gotta roll with it. It's a sense of not feeling personally persecuted if the universe is not the way that you expect it to be. It's kind of like you can meet the entire universe where it is, the way that you could meet a child where they are, even if it's not where you want them to be or where you expect them to be. That's like unconditional love is total acceptance. And I think my next video is going to be about how that might sound like stagnation, but actually it's anything but. So, just some thoughts on that.